A Boy and His Blob, the story of two unlikely friends on a quest to save an alien planet through treasure hunting in sewers and buying lots of over-the-counter medication. If you weren't playing video games in the early 80s, there's a chance you don't recognize the name David Crane. Or if you were a Super Nintendo or Genesis kid, you might vaguely remember his name being attached to some tennis game you probably never played. But he's actually one of the pioneers of our industry. His Atari 2600 game Pitfall is one of the earliest platforming games ever made, released by the first third-party publisher in history, Activision, which David co-founded with a group of other ex-Atari employees. David eventually left Activision and joined Absolute Entertainment with another group of folks, which included fellow Activision alumni Gary Kitchen. A Boy and His Blob represents the first game created by David and Absolute specifically for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The game stars the titular unnamed boy and his new alien pal, Blobbert. There's trouble on Blobbert's home planet of Blobolonia, and he and the boy must use Blobbert's transformation powers to find some cash, buy some medicine, and jet off to Blobolonia to save it before it's too late. The game is divided into two distinct parts. In the first half of the game, you explore the caverns below what appears to be New York City. This section uses a free-roaming exploration mechanic and tasks you with finding as much hidden treasure as possible. Like Pitfall before it, A Boy and His Blob uses flick scrolling rather than smooth scrolling, meaning you have to move the boy to the edges of a particular screen before you can see the next area. This is a particularly great way to hide all the treasure. The boy only has 3 abilities: running, whistling, and feeding jelly beans to Blobbert. Depending on the jelly bean Blobbert eats, he'll transform into a different useful item. Tangerine jelly beans turn him into a trampoline, apple turns him into a jack, licorice a ladder. Pretty much every transformation is some sort of pun or alliteration. The jelly beans are useful in other ways as well. If the boy throws one off screen and stands still, the camera will actually follow the jelly bean, giving you a quick look at upcoming hazards on new screens. Of course, Blobbert will be sad that you threw one of his candies away and will frown at you until you feed him another one. The second half of the game feels much more like something we'd have been used to seeing from David Crane and developer Imagineering, which was Absolute's in-house development team. While on Blobolonia, the action is a straightforward, flat level featuring different obstacles and enemies to deal with on each new screen. Popcorn that hops around, cherry bombs that explode and kill everything on the screen when they touch the ground, or creepy giant teeth chopping away at the floor. It actually all feels really similar to Ghostbusters 2 or Acclaim's early Simpsons games, which were also Imagineering titles. Strangely, for a game this old, the boy and the jelly beans feature a form of momentum. As you run, the boy actually picks up speed and can throw his jelly beans a bit further. Ultimately, this is the key to beating the final screen of the game. The entire idea around a bag full of jelly beans and a shape-shifting blob was apparently born out of Crane being unimpressed with contemporary games offering the player loads of items and options, but through a sub-menu. His goal with A Boy and His Blob was to offer a similar level of variety without forcing the players to pause gameplay every time they wanted to switch items. You could argue that cycling through dozens of jelly bean choices with the select button wasn't necessarily a better option, but I guess it does technically keep the action moving. While the quality of the game is pretty debatable nowadays, back when it was first shown, A Boy and His Blob garnered a fair amount of praise, winning the 1989 CES Best of Show Award and a 1990 Parents' Choice Award. And it was quickly followed up by a Game Boy sequel, The Rescue of Princess Blobette. Not bad for a game that Crane and Kitchen apparently built in the space of 6 weeks. Apparently, the Nintendo testing team really liked the game as well. In fact, the ketchup jelly bean is a result of feedback from Nintendo, suggesting a bean that would teleport Blobbert back to the player in order to avoid unwinnable situations. Unfortunately, Absolute Entertainment went bankrupt in 1995, and the rights to A Boy and His Blob were picked up by Majesco Entertainment. 20 years after the first game was released, WayForward and Majesco published a beautiful reimagining of the game in 2009, featuring WayForward's trademark gorgeous 2D graphics and animation and a much more player-friendly experience. However, outside of the boy, the blob, and the jelly beans, this game really doesn't resemble the original story. I've always had a special place in my heart for A Boy and His Blob. Something about the imaginative characters and story always drew me in. Even now, 25 years after I first played the game, I still enjoy the experience. I love the little touches like Blobbert's frown when he misses a jelly bean, or the boy sliding off of cliffs and pausing to look down before he eventually falls. I love how the music, which loops endlessly, is punctuated by different elements if and when the blob does things like grow into a ladder or turn into a bubble. This game certainly wasn't for everyone, but it's got that trademark David Crane creativity that some folks will remember fondly.